FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
I'd like to argue that the Games can be a big step, a big important step in bringing China and the Chinese out of the shrill, rejective response to criticism that we've seen in the last few weeks. But first, I'd just like to go back to the question before us: is China fit to host the Olympics? What is the standard of fitness that's been applied in the past? You'll probably expect me to raise the 36 Olympics in Berlin or the 1980 Moscow Games held by Leonid Brezhnev's Soviet Union. But I think most of you agree that is setting the bar far too low. And even in those cases, I wonder if you'd really think that it would have been better for Hitler's Aryan champions not to have been beaten right in front of the Führer's eyes by the black American Jesse Owens, or for other political protests to have been made, like the refusal of the Australian team to take off their caps and salute as they marched past Hitler's podium. Indeed, as Simon has informed me, Dunk Gray, the cyclist who was carrying the Australian flag, did dip the flag briefly, but then jerked it up in a suggestive manner, as though he was sticking it up the Führer. They don't like it up them. But let's look at some other glaring, less glaring cases. I'm grateful to Susan Brunel, a China anthropologist and a noted American track athlete who teaches at the University of Missouri. She's written an essay recently about the Olympics held in her hometown, St. Louis, in 1904. These games were held alongside a world fair that projected the United States as the new world power. It was a kind of combined coming out party for the US just after it had seized the Spanish colonies of the Philippines, Guam, and Puerto Rico. There was a section of the World Fair showing how successful the US government had been in civilizing the Native Americans, and the Games featured what were called anthropology days, in which various natives were brought on field to compete, and their performance rated unfavorably with those of athletes from so-called civilized nations. Like Beijing of today, St. Louis was also the occasion to show off the new national wealth in grandiose public buildings, in this case the St. Louis Union Railroad Station, at the time the most opulent rail terminus in the world. The European grandees of the IOC found it all embarrassing, mediocre, and utilitarian. The new power always gets this kind of disparagement from the status quo powers. Fast forward to Melbourne, 52 years later. There was a boycott by some of the Arab nations over the Menzies' support for the British, French, Israeli intervention in Suez that year, sundry other boycotts, but none against Australia itself, surprisingly, given that Australia was running a White Australia policy in full swing at that time. The Aboriginal policy was one of assimilation. The painter Albert Namatjira was still some months away from being given Australian citizenship, and the strike by the Gurindji at Wave Hill Station was still a decade away, and they were doing their hard stockman's work for rations of flour, tea, bully beef and tobacco, and sent on walkabout in their own country when the mustering was done. Fast forward to 2000, the Sydney Games, all about inclusiveness, tolerance, openness and fun in the harbour city. Yet, not long before, the Howard government had refused to issue any apology for the stolen generation, though a group of dissidents, known as the Midnight Oil, managed to smuggle the slogan "Sorry" into the closing ceremony. Far away in the interior, a barbed wire encampment called the Woomera Immigration Reception and Processing Centre had opened late in 1999. By the time of the Olympic Games, it held about 1,500 would-be refugees, including hundreds of children, mostly from the countries whose tyrannical governments Australia would shortly send forces to help overthrow. Along with similar camps at Port Hedland and Derby, there were these images of children behind barbed wire were kept hidden from the big party in Sydney. A year later, of course, came the Tampa incident and the Pacific Solution. We even had a counterpart to the Tibet Railway. Work started in 2001 on the line from Alice Springs to Darwin, named sentimentally after the Afghan Cameliers, although as far as I recall, no Afghans or Baluchis were invited to the opening. Perhaps we were just lucky that the Aboriginals had no Dalai Lama-like figure to lead them, or even a Richard Gere to focus international animus on Australia and hold us to Olympic ransom.